Hi everybody, welcome back. So we just did a bit of a live stream just for fun. So thank you to anybody that watched that for a bit and asked some questions and kept me entertained whilst I was doing some jobs. What we did was we drained the coolant that we had in for racing, so the distilled water and the water wetter. And we've done a couple of loads of just some general antifreeze for the winter to stop it all freezing up and doing damage in the engine. So I'm glad we've got that done. And now I'm actually going to do a bit of a brake rebuild. So these have done almost 3,000 miles. We have cleaned them once in the life, and now it's overdue, especially if we want to have peak performance on the track. So what we're going to do, I do have some seal kits arriving. So we're going to pull the pistons out of these. We're going to drain all the fluid out. We're going to give them a good scrub up. I'm going to replace the seals, and you can join me for that. So what I've done so far is just pull the calipers off the bike, and we've jammed in a 8mm Allen key on this side, pumped the brake with the other caliper still in place on the disc until we got the pistons to this point, which is almost out. And now with that cable tied in there, we can continue pumping, and we've almost got these pistons pushed out too. So we're going to get the pistons pushed out as far as we can, and then we'll continue with some other tools, let's say. So there is a tool that I've got which grabs the inside of the piston, and so you can, spin the piston around, you can manipulate it and pull it out without damaging the outer surface. The last thing we want to do is damage this surface here, which rubs against the seals. So don't ever be tempted to grab the piston by an outside surface. We only want to work by grabbing the inside of that piston, basically. But either way, we're going to get these out, and I'll show you what's next. Okay, so as you can see, we've been successful with getting out the pistons here. Fairly nice and easy. Again, we just grabbed the inside with my brake piston plier tools, and we've got the seals out. So here's the caliper, which I've just given a good spray with the brake cleaner, and then we're going to blow that out with an airline in a minute. But my technique for getting the seals out is to take a razor blade, and you kind of stab into the seal, because we're replacing the seals anyway. You stab into the seal and prise it out, because we're trying not to damage any of the metalwork of the caliper, but we can sacrifice the seal. So that's what I did, just kind of dug into the seal and lifted it out, and then with a screwdriver just levered around the seal to get it out. So it's nothing complicated. You just got to be careful that we're not damaging any of the metal parts, the soft aluminium, or what's this made of? Yeah, I think this is aluminium caliper. So we're just being careful not to damage the groove. So I'm going to blow these out with an airline. You can just do this with a old toothbrush and some baby soap or something like that, some real easy going cleaner, and just give it a good old clean out, give it a swill out, and then just let them dry out, or even apply some heat, hair dryer, whatever, just to dissipate any of the water that you've used to clean it. So I'm going to try and show you a quick demonstration of getting the pistons out. So this is my tool for extracting pistons. These are all over Amazon if you need. So they just prise apart and grip the inside of the piston. So here's our brake caliper off the bike, and I pushed the pistons quite a ways out, but we need to push them actually a little bit in, which you can just do with your thumbs there a little bit. I'm getting fluid everywhere, but all for science. So So we get our piston gripper in there and we start twisting, and we might need to ease the other piston away a little bit. Again, the last thing we want to do is damage the outer surface of the piston, but there we go. We've got it out. We're going to put this somewhere safe so it's not going to get damaged, and give it a clean up. So there you go. That's how to get your pistons out. Make sure you're ready to catch all the fluid that's going to go all over your hands and everything. So wear gloves as well. So these are my brake pistons. I've individually wrapped each one in a piece of tissue and put it in a Ziploc bag so that they don't get knocked around and damaged whilst I wait for my seals to arrive. So they're going to live with the calipers, and we're going to wait for my seals to arrive, and then we can move on with the next part of the job. Okay, so we are back. It's been actually a couple of weeks since I last recorded anything. We were waiting on these seals to arrive, and I made a bit of a mistake in the sense that I thought I'd ordered sufficient seals and then realized I'd only ordered enough for one caliper because I'm useless at counting. Anyway, so we got these seals. So these are the larger size and these are the smaller ones. So I have used aftermarket seals in the past on my 650 race bike, and I've had mixed results. So wherever possible, even though these are eye-wateringly expensive, I do try and go for genuine seals because it's just not worth the hassle of dealing with issues when we're at the racetrack and stuff like that. We've done a very good job, or at least just giving these pistons a wipe over. You want to be looking for any signs of scratching or pitting on the surface of the pistons. If you see anything like that and you can't get them smoothed out gently, then you want to be looking at replacing the pistons also. These have cleaned up very nicely. Again, this bike's done 2,000 miles-ish, 2,500. We've done a good job, reasonably good job of keeping them clean. So I'm going to be able to reuse my pistons. The items that again, there are certain things I'm willing to reuse when I'm rebuilding the caliper. The pistons, shims, you know. Even the nipple actually is looking okay. You want to be looking for wear on this face, on this cone shape. If that starts to look like it's dished, you might want to replace that too. But these look okay. And then of course, crush washers for the banjo bolt, definitely replace those. You can see that the old ones have got a lip on them where they were crushed. So definitely replace those when we're rebuilding the calipers also. And if you have aluminium banjo bolts rather than steel, get the aluminium crush washers, not the copper ones. There is a difference, which we don't need to go into, but the aluminium ones go with the aluminium bolts. Aluminum, sorry. Then, lastly, we've got this silicone grease. This is just available for many places. And all this is for, and these seals do come, I don't know if you can see it, they come slightly pre-greased. So I might not need any, but the aim of this is just to go on the back side of the seals, so when we put them inside the caliper, they seat nicely and they don't get restricted in their movement as we put them in. We don't want a binding point on the seal. We don't actually lubricate, or at least I don't, the inside face where the piston's gonna slide into. We lubricate that with just a very thin smear of brake fluid itself. And I generally only do that on the main seal. The dust seal, I probably don't even, I don't usually try to put anything on the dust seal because I don't want to attract dust. So I might just put a very fine amount of brake fluid on there to push in the piston. But if I can get away and it feels good enough without, I'd rather just let the dust seal be itself and not be lubricated so it doesn't attract dust and dirt and grime and everything. So yeah, we're gonna get these. So this caliper has been cleaned extremely well, or at least in the areas that matter. So these channels inside where the seals sit That's where you want to pay the most attention. We don't want any debris in there. We want those clean as a whistle. So I did a combination of brake fluid and then, sorry, not brake fluid, brake cleaner, and then some soft detergent and a brush. And then I airlined all the channels. So you want to make sure that these channels where the brake fluid does flow are all clear. Blow them out if you can with an airline. Otherwise, just rinse them out with water and then make sure that all the water is out. We don't want any water left in there. So what I did was place a heater, blowing on the calipers until the calipers were hot, just to make sure that any water inside there evaporates up. So now we're going to get to loading in the seals, and it'll be hard for me to show you that on a camera, but basically we're going to take the seal out of the packet. Oh, there is one thing to note, which I'll show you right now. So one of the things that you might be, thinking about or have heard about is, are these seals directional? Can you put the seals in the wrong way? We mean which side of the force on the piston is the seal really important for? Because obviously when we've got brake fluid pushing on the back of here, we want the seal to be making sure that no fluid can pass by the seal, pass by the piston. And in the past, some seals were directional. Now, if we look at this old seal, which is marked by the blue tape, you can kind of see, if I get a pen here, you can kind of see that the profile of the seal is like that. It's got a high point here versus a low point here. But the seals don't come like that. They actually get formed in the caliper itself like that. And you can see both sides of the seal are a bit like that. They have a high edge, sorry for my hairy fingers. They have a high edge on the back, both sides. This is a new seal, which is perfectly straight on the top, both sides. You see that? Sorry, it's hard to show you, but it's a point to drive home really. So the seal isn't directional when you're putting it in. The caliper itself forms this kind of profile due to the shape and machining in the caliper itself. So just thought that would be an interesting thing to share. Okay, so we're going to try and get some of these seals in place on camera, just so you get a little bit of an idea. It's not going to be easy to show it. Don't use any tools, only use your fingers to do this. We don't want to damage any surface of the seal. So we're only going to use our fingers to do this. So kind of a idea. So obviously we've got a big and a small. So this is a big seal here. So we're going to try and slide the bottom side into the back cavity, and then try to hold it in place and slide our fingers left and right until we get it in. Wish me luck. So we're going in, aiming for that back seal. You're going to feel until it rests in, which it has. Then I'm going to feed the top with my thumb and then try to gently caress this thing into place until it pops in. So there you go, the first seal is in. I don't know if you can see the difference even, it's so dark in there. But the first seal is in, sat within the groove. I didn't actually apply any further silicone grease. I think what's on there is sufficient. It was only if I felt that one was particularly dry that I might have added some grease, but they feel nicely lubricated, go in nice and smoothly, and so they seem to come with the correct amount of lubrication, so that's a good thing. So the dust seal, again, I'm going to aim to try and get this in without lubrication until we're about to put the piston in, if I feel that it's necessary. So these are actually trickier to get in because they're thinner, and so they flex a lot more and mess about. So I'm going to try and get this one in for you. Ease it down into the groove. making sure that we keep, there's like an internal groove within the seal itself. So we're trying to keep that facing the inside. Okay, so it's gone in. I can feel it's seated all the way in. It's a good idea to just rub your finger all the way around the seals, making sure there's no high points. And it is in. Okay, so all the seals are in. Now, some people will say, well, I've heard of people not using the dust seals on race bikes, and that's true. If you're a fully fledged race team, you probably don't run those dust seals. The theory being that they can start to act as a binder on the pistons too, eventually. And so if you discard them and meticulously keep these things clean, you can maybe get away with it. Because my bike is, you know, I'm just me, a one guy trying to run a race bike and occasionally on the road. For me, there's no real difference for me to not run the dust seals. I have done before, but for me right now, I'm happy to run the dust seals and help them keep my main seals and the pistons clean, because that's more important to me than that last little fraction of feel or something. So yeah. All right, so all the seals are in, giving them a good feel around with my fingers to make sure they're seated correctly. And then as per the manual, it will tell you to give a gentle or a very thin smear wipe of brake fluid on the pistons and push them into place. I don't have brake fluid here right now, so I'm not going to do that part just yet. So anytime that I'm not working on the seal, on the caliper, I make sure to pop the caliper into a nice clean bag, keeping all the dust and everything perfectly clean whilst I wait for the next step. All right, so this is probably going to be a part 1 of 2, where part 2 is us refilling the system on the bike with brake fluid. What I'm going to show is just the last little step that we're going to do today, and that is to talk about reinserting the piston. And the reason I'm not going to use brake fluid just in this demonstration is because I don't want brake fluid existing inside the caliper in any way, shape or form until I'm ready to fill the complete system with brake fluid. That's just the way I am, being particular about it. We don't want brake fluid. Have you ever seen it where it crystallizes? If you leave it out on a surface, you can start to see crystals forming. That's obviously something we don't want inside these calipers. So because I'm not at the bike in the garage, I am just going to do a quick demonstration of what you would do. But yeah, ideally what you want to do is, once you've got these pistons reinserted, go ahead and bleed up your system as quickly as relatively quickly as you can, so you don't get any deposits forming on the back of the piston or inside the caliper. So what we would do is, some people would show you to smear the piston with the brake fluid. What might happen then is, when you go to insert the piston, that brake fluid will be collected by the dust seal. And I don't like that. I don't want the dust seal, again, getting any of that crystal deposits from the brake fluid that I've experienced inside these. So what I like to do is get, with gloves on, some brake fluid on my fingertip, and then carefully reach inside and rub that onto the main seal only. Once the main seal is lubricated, we can then put the piston in. So because my seal is actually lubricated a little bit with the silicone grease that it came with, I'm just going to use that as this demonstration. Then I will take this out off camera and do it the normal way. But basically, that's my tips for you with lubricating the seals. And basically, you're going to be very carefully moving the piston back into place, keeping it nice and straight. Make sure any last little bits are off the piston, and then it should be as easy as gentle location. And then we're going to push this gently into place, and we're going to push the piston all the way. It should be nice and easy into the caliper. And that's going to help us when we bleed up the system, because the more space that we can remove from behind the piston, the less air there is in the system. So gently locate, push in, nice and easy, should go in smoothly. If it doesn't, there's something wrong, so don't force them. So that's that. All right guys, that's going to be it for this part 1, and we'll be back with a part 2, perhaps, where we bleed up the system on the bike. But I hope this has been useful. Obviously you just repeat this for all your pistons and then rebuild the shim and the brake fluid, the brake pads, etc., as you took them apart. All right, well, I hope that's been useful so far, and we'll be back with a part 2 soon.